For this walk I decided to go up and explore some more of the Brisbane Water National Park. I travelled up to Kariong and then out down along the Woi Woi Road to the speed camera at the beginning of the tunnel fire trail. When I began walking I met some firefighters who were going out to Bulls Hill Quarry to practice pumping and testing out their pumping equipment on their trucks. Went further along the tunnel track to Tomo's Loop and followed Tomo's Loop up onto the ridge up behind where the railway line is in the park there, and from there I could see Mount Wondabyne. The track continued on to a junction with the Patonga track, which then had me on the Great North Walk, which came up from Patonga and carried on over through to Giracool. I followed the trail, Tomo's Loop, right around to where the track goes off towards Giracool, and that leaves the fire trail and becomes a proper walking track. That track dropped down quite steeply in the end, down to Kariong Brook, where Kariong Falls are. And that was the spot where I had lunch and then turned around to come back to the car. The car was parked outside the gate beside the road, quite near the speed camera, but I of course wasn't speeding at that stage, and I began the walk down along the fire trail from there. Bulls Hill Swamp was actually an old quarry where they used to get sandstone, and this is where the fire trucks were heading. They had plenty of water to be able to test out their pumping equipment. This gives an overview of the ponds of water where the quarry used to be. You can see one of the fire trucks out there getting ready to do their work for the day. The track into the quarry area is really quite rough and rocky, and the trucks rattled in along the rough track, one after the other, as they joined each other. They were from different brigades, different bushfire brigades from the Central Coast area. There's another truck coming in. It was quite an interesting trail. Sometimes there were good views across to Mount Wondabyne. And this section here was where the bushfire trail, the fire trail dropped over a ledge of rock and down onto a lower level of the ridge. This is Mount Wondabyne off in the distance across a little valley. You could see a trig station up on the top, and some people that were up there. They'd walked ahead of me, a group of scouts, and I could see them up on the trig station. This is quite a rough section of track down over water humps. This trail, of course, was out of bounds to most vehicles because the gates were locked, and even trail bikes couldn't get in along there. This is where the Tomo's Loop came up to the beginning of the walking track across to Kariong Brook, and kept on going over either to Wondabyne Station or to Giracool picnic area. I took a break here and checked the GPS receiver to see what the readings were, and that I was at the right place, although the signs made it pretty clear. Heading off down the walking track. Now this is really bushwalking country. The wildflower displays were really quite good. As being springtime, there's plenty of eriostemon and heaths, Epacris heaths around. Really beautiful displays. This is a very rocky section of the track where it dropped down off a ledge, and it was actually quite an interesting section with the steps cut out of the solid rock down between the boulders and dropping down quite steeply. A couple of other people came through, walking a lot quicker than I was. This girl and another fellow. They actually overtook me and continued on towards Gurukul. As the track got to the rim of the valley, it took a quick turn to the right, and this handrail had been put up there. I was sort of imagined that it was so that people wouldn't keep on going and over the ledge. I love these grass trees. They look like a couple of sentries keeping guard over the track as walkers went through, making sure that they were safe. The last little bit down to the brook where the falls were was really very steep, well made steps, but in a couple of places quite precarious. Had to really watch what you were doing, getting around the ledges of rock and under a tree and so on. The area at the falls was very, very pretty. The sound of the falls permeated the whole area. As you're coming down the steep side of the valley, you could hear the falls getting louder and louder. And this made a good spot to have lunch. I was a little bit early, but I didn't intend walking any further, so I decided to stop there and boil up the billy for a cup of tea and settle down, have a rest before trekking back to the car. Beautiful surroundings for a dining area. While I was there, a group of scouts came through on their Venturers Badge walk. They stopped to have a look around and have a bit of a chat to them, see what they were up to, and just to... they were going the other way. They were going back the way towards the car, where my car was. Little cameos of the falls and the surrounding area around the pool of water. Well, after packing up, the return walk began, climbing up the steep side of the hill, the valley, and heading off towards the Tomo's Fire Trail again. This little clip shows how steep the track was. A few clips of the flowers along the way. A little grey spider flower, Grevillea buxifolia, good old Eriostemon australasius, the pink wax flower, some Hibertia, looks like Dilwinia floribunda, I think. and a larger view of the same plant, Dewinia. This is getting back up towards the handrail section. A lot of work's gone into putting this track together, all the steps and stones and that sort of thing. Not having been in this area, I was quite surprised how substantial the tracks were. Yes, there was a monitor lizard across the track. I just missed him on the track, and he caught my attention as he was crawling off towards the flat rock, and here he was laying really close, flat against the rock, hoping to be camouflaged, I guess. Beautiful specimen. Back up the cut steps. And that's virtually the top of the steepest part of the climb. Some more flowers. Nice little apacris. Some Eriostemon buxifolius, which is called just wax flower. And a larger view of the same flower, the Eriostemon. An isopogon flower just about finished. Some small apacris. A rather pretty little melaleuca, a very soft mauve, puffy little flower. A gonphalobium. Not sure what this is. It looks to be a little bit like a prostanthera, but it's not prostanthera. A little bit of the shy dog rose, Baura rubioides. Some more apacris. Another little Eriostemon buxifolius. Boxleaf waxflower they call it, common name. And another lovely little patch of Baura rubioides. Tomo's loop track at long last, and heading off back down the fire trail now. Just some moving clips to show the conditions of the track. Sometimes it was very gravelly, sometimes it was sandy, sometimes it was across bare rock like this section here. The only example I saw of the native iris along the way, there was a couple of flowers just at this little spot. It was the only ones I saw all the way. Pattersonia. Little Baronia, four-petaled Baronia. And some more pea flowers, gonphalobiums. Shows a sandy section of the track. Camera in hand. I forgot to take my bum bag to carry the still camera, so I had two cameras in my hand. This is up the steep section that climbs back up to the top of the rocky outcrop. Just cresting the rock. This gate was about a kilometre down the trail, and a lot of work had gone on to make it that the trail bikes couldn't get through at all. And it was actually quite, had to be careful getting around it just as a walker. I was a bit surprised to see the fire trucks, bushfire trucks, still at the quarry when I returned in the afternoon. They must have been there all day working. Quite serious about their training and their tasks and their equipment. I don't know what they thought about me filming them. They saw me. This is all zoomed up though. Well, after about 10 kilometres of walking back to the car, I had a cup of tea before I set off back into the traffic, back along the Woy Road to Kariong and onto the freeway.